flight began like any other. Passengers settled in, clicked their seatbelts, and Air India Flight 171 lifted off into the hazy Ahmedabad sky. But what happened next would go down as one of the darkest moments in Indian aviation. At 1:38 p.m., the Boeing 7878 Dreamliner climbed away from the runway, bound for London with 242 people on board. Everything seemed normal until the plane reached about 625 feet and mysteriously crashed. The aircraft stalled in mid-air, its nose lifting too high before it fell. Then it hit the hostel block of BJ Medical College in the Meghani Nagar district like a guided missile. Flames erupted everywhere, windows shattered for blocks, and a thick, black cloud of smoke billowed into the sky. Chaos followed in its wake. Only one person on board survived. When Flight A171 tore into the building, the emergency door flew open and he jumped 4 stories down. Normally, a fall like that would end you, but he landed in a pile of loose sand from a nearby construction site. He walked away with just a cut on his cheek, stumbling out into the chaos of smoke and dust. Everyone else on the plane wasn't so lucky. Of the 242 people on board, only he survived. First responders pulled bodies from the twisted metal and roaring flames. Many were too badly burned or broken to recognize. On the ground, at least 39 more lives were lost. Medical students, hospital workers, locals. Dozens more were burned or crushed in the collapse. The black boxes, both the flight data and cockpit voice recorders, were recovered quickly. What they revealed was chilling. At the city's hospitals, hallways filled with the sound of grief and hurried footsteps. Teams in protective suits gathered DNA samples from every piece of wreckage, matching them against samples from families. Every time a match was made, relatives gathered to say a final goodbye, placing flowers on closed coffins and praying in low voices. Even in the worst of times, people found ways to help. One tea seller down the street closed his shop and brought boxes of biscuits to the hospital entrance, handing them out to exhausted doctors, nurses, and waiting families. His simple act became a small beacon of kindness in all that horror. Now the big question: what went wrong? After Flight A171 took off, the ram air turbine deployed, a last-ditch emergency system that only activates when all engines fail, which meant Flight 171 had lost total thrust. Complete failure. Investigators also picked up seismic readings, ones you'd expect from a high-speed impact, not a controlled crash. There was no time to react, no time to recover. The aircraft achieved lift. We saw it. Video footage confirms the rotation was clean, and the engines were producing full or near full thrust as the jet left the runway. But moments later, within seconds, the wings lost lift. The plane stalled. And then, it fell. Early theories pointed to flap configuration errors. Some speculated the pilots had taken off without proper flap settings or raised them too early. That theory is now dead. The flaps were working exactly as they should. Which brings us to the pilots themselves. Let's set the record straight. There was never a question of competence. These weren't amateurs. These were seasoned aviators, trained, licensed, and trusted with one of the world's most advanced aircraft. And they were flying in their second language. English is the global language of aviation, and for these pilots, it wasn't native. That makes their performance under pressure all the more remarkable. They didn't cause this crash. They fought it, and they lost. The RAT deployment is yet the hardest evidence, but here's what we now know with certainty. The aircraft's ram air turbine, or RAT, deployed. This is not routine. The RAT is a last resort mechanism. It only deploys when both engines have failed and there's no power left to fly the plane. It's like your car battery dying and your only backup is a bicycle strapped to the back. We have video evidence of the RAT under the fuselage. We have audio recordings from bystanders that picked up the distinct high-pitched whine of a rat spinning in open air. And we have the survivor, the lone miracle in a crash of 242 souls, saying he heard a loud bang and saw the cabin lights flicker. That bang, experts believe, was the rat slamming down. Then there's the Mayday call. The captain didn't mince words. Thrust not achieved. That's as blunt as it gets. He was telling air traffic control the engines weren't giving enough power to fly. Which brings us to the nightmare scenario no one wants to say out loud. The dual engine failure. 2 engines. Both gone. Simultaneously. It shouldn't be possible. And yet it happened. Jet engines are marvels of modern engineering. Once started, they only need 2 things to keep going: clean air, and liquid fuel. That's it. If you lose one, the Dreamliner can keep flying. In fact, it can continue its route, even climb, with a single engine running. But when you lose both, at 600 feet, there's no checklist for that. As the investigation went on, another question asked was if the heat played a role. Ahmedabad was boiling that day. Official reports pegged the temperature at 43 degrees, over 109 degrees. But that's the air temp near the tower. Runway surface temperatures, easily hotter. Black asphalt can spike temperatures far above what thermometers record. The engines, already strained by high humidity and heat, could have experienced airflow complications during takeoff. Jet engines don't just want air, they want dense, oxygen-rich, cool air. That day, the air was hot, thin, and unforgiving. Could this have choked the engines just enough to trigger a flameout? Possibly. But for both engines to fail? Still statistically improbable, unless the impossible happened. And this brings us to the next theory. Fuel. Fuel is life in aviation. And here's the thing. Modern jets don't want any fuel. They want perfect fuel. Liquid, stable, clean. If contaminated fuel entered both engines, if there was a fuel pump malfunction, or a fuel line pressure failure, everything changes. Suddenly, both engines can flame out, even if they're perfectly built, even if they were working minutes earlier. It's happened before, in aircraft far less complex than a Dreamliner, but if it happened here, it would suggest a systemic failure upstream of the pilots, something on the ground. The rat doesn't deploy by mistake. It's hardwired to respond to one thing: total system failure. And when the rat deployed on Flight 171, it wasn't because someone hit a button. It deployed automatically, because the plane was dying mid-air. This is why investigators are leaning toward a fuel-related cause. It's the only scenario that explains the total engine loss, the emergency power deployment, and the fact that even at full weight, the Dreamliner couldn't maintain lift. The gear never retracted. The plane never gained altitude. It stalled and slammed nose up into a dormitory filled with students. These theories have sparked debate across the aviation world. Pilots, mechanics, analysts, all weighing in. The hangar talk that once happened in smoke-filled backrooms now happens on YouTube. Experts like Gary B. Pilot and others have taken the conversation public. And that's a good thing, because if we don't talk about it, we'll never fix it. Let's be clear, flying is safe, safer than ever. But safety doesn't mean invincibility, and ignoring warning signs is how future disasters are born. Air India grounded every Dreamliner in its fleet. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation ordered emergency inspections nationwide, and Boeing, alongside GE Aerospace, sent their top engineers to examine what went wrong. Prime Minister Modi called it heartbreaking beyond words, and he wasn't exaggerating. This wasn't just a crash. It was the deadliest aviation accident in India in nearly 30 years, and the very first time a Boeing Dreamliner suffered a fatal hull loss since the aircraft was introduced. But the real question now is this: why did both engines fail? Because until we answer that, we're all just guessing. And guesswork is no match for 625 feet of sky. Flight 171 is no longer just a number on a departure board. It's a wake-up call, a lesson paid for in blood. A reminder that in aviation, even the most advanced machines are only as good as the systems and people behind them. And unless the right people start listening, this won't be the last time we ask what really happened. Thanks for watching the Owl Watch. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below.